This 4-year-old homeless girl sees a millionaire being forced to drink dirty water by a shopkeeper. But she comes up behind him and does something shocking. Comment and tell me what city you're watching from. I really want to know where you're from, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The scorching Harmony Springs sun beat down on Main Street's cracked asphalt as Lily huddled in the sparse shade of a wilting tree. Her bare feet, marked by cuts and calluses prematurely earned for a 4-year-old, trembled not from inexistent cold in the Georgia heat, but from hunger that had gnawed at her stomach for 2 days. The yellowed plastic bottle she clutched to her chest was her only treasure. Clean water she'd gotten from a faucet at a house where the owner had taken pity on her the night before. Her curly hair, parched by the sun, framed a thin face, but her large, dark eyes held a different kind of sparkle, an intelligence that seemed to absorb every detail of the world around her like a sponge. Lily memorized everything. Car license plates, people's faces, conversations she overheard while hiding behind wooden crates at the downtown market. It was a gift she didn't yet understand, but one that kept her alert in a world that seemed to have forgotten her existence. The street grew busier when a black car pulled up in front of Frank's butcher shop. Lily knew that man, a portly, sweaty shop owner who always shooed her away with shouts when she came near his store. But today something was different. A tall man stepped out of the car, with graying hair and a well-pressed suit, even in the infernal heat. Arthur Davidson was well known in town, the shipping magnate, as people whispered with a mix of respect and envy. Lily watched Frank emerge from his shop with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The two men spoke in low tones, but the little girl could catch fragments of the increasingly heated discussion. Words like debt, interest, and overdue reached her, carried by the warm breeze that blew between the low buildings downtown. "You owe me more than just money, Davidson." Frank's voice rose, losing its false cordiality. "My family lost everything because of you 20 years ago. Now it's time for you to pay." Arthur tried to maintain his composure, but Lily noticed the sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. "Frank, be reasonable. We can resolve this like civilized men." "Civilized?" Frank chuckled bitterly. "You destroyed my father when you broke that cotton supply contract for your company. He couldn't bear the humiliation and, well, you know what happened after that. The tension in the air was palpable. Other shopkeepers began to gather, forming a discreet but menacing circle around the two men. Lily recognized some faces, people she'd seen whispering with Frank in dark alleys, always exchanging envelopes and nervously glancing around. "I want you to prove your humility." Frank pointed to a puddle of murky water that had formed near the curb, where sewage oozed from a clogged drain. "Drink it." Arthur's face paled. "Have you lost your mind? Drink it, or everyone in town will know what kind of man you really are. I have some very interesting photos of certain dealings of yours that might not please your investors." Lily watched Arthur look around, realizing he was trapped. Some shopkeepers whispered among themselves, others discreetly recorded with their phones. The powerful businessman was cornered in the very town where he was born and raised. With trembling hands, Arthur knelt before the dirty puddle. The dark water reflected his defeated face as he prepared for the humiliation Frank demanded. The silence of the street was broken only by the distant traffic and the rapid pounding of Lily's heart as she watched that terrible scene from her hidden spot in the shade. It was at that moment that something stirred within the girl. Perhaps it was the memory of her mother, who had left this world when she was only 2, whispering that she should always help those in need. Perhaps it was just the natural kindness of a child who still believed the world could be better. Lily stepped out of the shadows and walked slowly towards the men. Her tiny feet made little noise on the hot asphalt, but her presence caught everyone's attention. Frank saw her first and moved to shoo her away, but he stopped when he realized what she was carrying. "Mister," Lily said in her thin, clear voice, extending the bottle of clean water to Arthur. "Here, it's good water." Time seemed to stop. Arthur lifted his eyes from the dirty puddle and met the girl's gaze, pure, generous, expecting nothing in return. She was the only person on that street who cared enough to offer help to a stranger in distress. You don't need to drink that dirty water, Lily continued, completely ignoring Frank's furious stares. My mama always said clean water is sacred. The child's offer broke something inside Arthur. His tears mixed with the sweat on his face as he accepted the bottle with trembling hands. The simple gesture of a homeless girl had restored his dignity at a moment when all seemed lost. Frank watched the scene with eyes blazing with anger, realizing his moment of revenge had been interrupted by the unexpected interference of a street child. Lily's gesture echoed through the street like a stone dropped into still waters. Arthur clutched the bottle tightly, feeling the warm plastic against his sweaty palms. For a moment, the powerful businessman and the homeless girl stared at each other, and in her gaze, he saw something he hadn't encountered in a long time: genuine compassion, without ulterior motive, without calculation. "Thank you, little one," Arthur murmured, his voice thick with emotion. He drank the clean water in small sips, savoring not only the liquid that quenched his thirst, but the dignity the child had returned to him. Frank slammed his fist into his palm, his bloodshot eyes fixed on the girl who had ruined his moment of vengeance. "Get out of here, brat! Nobody called for you!" He took a step towards Lily, but Arthur quickly stood, positioning himself between them. "Leave the child alone," Arthur said, his firm voice returning. "Your fight is with me." "It's not over," Frank snarled, but the circle of shopkeepers began to disperse, realizing the spectacle had lost its allure. "You'll pay me, Davidson, one way or another." When the men left, Arthur knelt down to Lily's height. Up close, he could see the signs of her difficult life: her dirty, patched clothes, extreme thinness, small scars on her hands and arms. But it was her eyes that impressed him most, alert, intelligent, memorizing every detail of his face as if she were a camera. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lily," she replied, still clutching the empty bottle. "I live over there." She pointed to a narrow alley between two abandoned stores. "Are you okay?" The big man was being real mean. The simplicity of her observation brought a melancholic smile to Arthur's face. "I'm okay now, thanks to you. Where are your parents, Lily?" "Mama went to heaven when I was real little, Daddy. I don't know where he is." Lily lowered her eyes. "The folks on the street look out for me sometimes, but I manage on my own." Arthur felt a pang in his chest. At 52, after building an empire in the shipping business, he discovered that children were living on the streets of his own town, while he concerned himself only with profits and investments. The irony was bitter. Frank had humiliated him, but an abandoned child had taught him about dignity. "Are you hungry?" he asked, noticing how she stared intently at the bakery window across the street. Lily nodded shyly. "Haven't had a good meal in 2 days. Just some fruit I found in the market's dumpster." "Come with me." Arthur extended his hand, and after hesitating briefly, Lily took it. Together, they walked to the bakery where he bought fresh pastries, cheese, ham, and a large warm glass of milk. They sat at a small table near the window, and he watched fascinated as she ate, slowly, savoring each bite, but always alert to any movement on the street. "Did you see what happened out there?" Arthur asked carefully. "Yes, I did. The big man was making you drink dirty water because you owe him something." Lily chewed thoughtfully. "But I've seen him do other bad things too." "What kind of things?" Lily looked around, making sure no one was listening. He'd chat with other men in the back room behind his shop. At night, when they thought no one was watching, they'd talk about spoiled food they were sending to the schools, about money disappearing. "I understand the big words they use." Arthur's heart raced. "Are you sure of what you heard?" "Yes, I am. My head remembers everything I see and hear. It's like a movie playing in my mind." Lily touched her forehead. "Miss Molly, who runs the church outreach, says it's a gift from God, but sometimes it makes me sad because I remember bad things too." Arthur processed this information with growing interest and concern. If Lily indeed possessed a photographic memory and had witnessed Frank's illegal activities, she could be in danger. At the same time, a pragmatic part of his business mind recognized that the girl's testimony could be the key to ridding himself of Frank's blackmail once and for all. "Lily, where do you sleep when it rains?" he asked, changing the subject. "At Miss Molly's church sometimes, or under the pharmacy's overhang. Once I slept in Frank's storage room, but he found me and yelled at me to leave. That's where I heard their conversations. And isn't there any place safer, a shelter maybe?" Lily shook her head. "They tried to take me to the shelter twice, but it's always full. They say there's only room for kids who are hurt or really sick. Since I manage fine on my own, they just leave me on the street." The social reality of Harmony Springs revealed itself to Arthur starkly and directly. He had lived in his bubble as a successful businessman, focused on expanding his cotton business, while children like Lily struggled to survive on the streets of the same town that brought him millions in profit. "Listen, Lily," he said, making an impulsive decision that would change both their lives forever. "How about you come stay at my house for a few days? I have a big place, with good food and a warm bed. You could help me by telling me more about those conversations you overheard." Lily's eyes widened. "Really? But I'm just a street kid. Rich folks don't take to people like me." "I like you," Arthur said sincerely. "You helped me when I needed it most. Now it's my turn to help you." Lily finished the last sip of milk, licking her lips so as not to waste a single drop. "Can I bring my bottle? It's all I have from my mama." "Of course you can." When they left the bakery, Arthur noticed Frank watching them from the door of his shop, his face contorted in an expression of rage and suspicion. The shopkeeper made a quick call on his cell phone, speaking in a low voice while keeping his eyes fixed on the unlikely pair, the millionaire businessman and the homeless girl walking together down Main Street. "That man didn't like that you helped me," Lily murmured, following Arthur's gaze. "Don't worry about him," Arthur replied, but in the back of his mind, a voice whispered that maybe he should worry. Frank Faraz wasn't the kind of man to easily forget an insult. As they headed for Arthur's car, neither of them noticed they were being discreetly photographed by a thin man hiding behind a parked van. The images would be very useful to Frank in the coming days. Arthur Davidson's mansion stood majestically atop Oakwood Hill, surrounded by well-manicured gardens and a panoramic view of the cotton fields that stretched to the horizon. Lily pressed her nose against the car window, her large eyes absorbing every detail of the house that seemed straight out of a fairy tale. "Is this where you live?" she asked, her voice filled with admiration and disbelief. "It is," Arthur replied, observing the girl's reaction in the rearview mirror. "Quite different from the alley where you used to sleep, isn't it?" "It's like a castle," Lily murmured. "My mama used to tell me stories about princesses who lived in places like this when they reached the main entrance. Maria, the 60-year-old housekeeper who had worked for Arthur for 2 decades, appeared at the door with a thinly veiled expression of surprise and disapproval. Her eyes swept over Lily from head to toe, noting her dirty clothes, disheveled hair, and bare feet. "Good afternoon, Mr. Davidson," she said, forcing a smile. "I didn't know you were expecting guests. Maria, this is Lily. She'll be staying with us for a few days." Arthur helped the girl out of the car, noticing how she flinched under the housekeeper's critical gaze. "Prepare the guest room and find some proper clothes for her." "But Mr. Davidson," Maria tried to protest. "There's no discussion," he cut her off, using the firm tone he employed in business. "Lily is our guest and should be treated as such." Inside the house, Lily walked as if in a museum, delicately touching expensive furniture and admiring the paintings on the walls. Her small, dirty hands contrasted with the elegance of the surroundings, but Arthur noticed she was careful not to soil anything. "I've never seen such a beautiful house," she whispered. "It even has a fancy chandelier like the ones in church. Would you like a warm bath?" Arthur offered. "Maria can help you." Lily nodded shyly, following the housekeeper up the marble stairs. Meanwhile, Arthur went to his study and closed the door. He needed to process the day's events and make some important decisions. He picked up the phone and dialed his personal attorney. "Mr. Henderson, I need an urgent consultation about temporary custody of a minor," he said as soon as the call was answered. Arthur, what's this all about? Are you all right? I am, but I found a child living on the streets who needs help. I want to do everything by the book. You know this is complex, don't you? There are procedures, social investigations. It's not something that happens overnight, Arthur sighed. Do whatever it takes. And Mr. Henderson, maintain absolute discretion on this. After hanging up, he leaned back in his leather armchair, looking out the window at the plantations that had made his family rich. His father had built that empire with hard work and honesty, values Arthur had always tried to uphold. But over the years, focused only on profits, he had distanced himself from the social issues affecting his own town. His cell phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. Michael Rodriguez, his oldest partner, appeared on the screen. "Arthur, I need to talk to you urgently," Michael said as soon as he answered. "There are strange rumors about you circulating in Harmony Springs." "What kind of rumors?" "That you were seen in a compromising situation with Frank Faraz today. And now there are photos of you with a street child circulating on social media. Investors are concerned." Arthur closed his eyes, feeling the weight of reality settling on him. "Michael, I can explain." "I hope you can. We have a meeting with the Japanese next week to finalize the export contract. They are very strict about the reputation of their business partners. Don't worry, I'll handle it." But when he hung up, Arthur knew handling it wouldn't be simple. Frank was playing dirty, using his public humiliation, and now Lily's presence to tarnish his reputation. It was a calculated and efficient strategy. At that moment, Maria came downstairs with a disturbed expression. "Mr. Davidson, I need to speak with you." "What is it?" "The girl. She's uncanny. While I was bathing her, she kept saying strange things, as if she'd seen everything that ever happened in this house. She even knew about the birthmark you have on your shoulder, something she couldn't possibly have seen." Arthur frowned. "What else did she say?" "She talked about conversations you had in the study, about people who came here years ago. It's like she has a camera in her head." It gave me chills. Going upstairs, Arthur found Lily in the guest room, wearing a pink bathrobe that was much too big for her. She sat on the king-size bed, looking even smaller amidst such luxury. Her clean hair revealed golden streaks the sun had brightened, and without the street grime, it was clear she had delicate features and an impressive natural beauty. "How do you feel?" he asked, sitting in a nearby armchair. "Clean," she said, smiling for the first time since they met. "The warm water is wonderful. Thank you for letting me stay here." "Lily, Maria told me you spoke about things in this house. How could you know such things?" Lily lowered her eyes, fiddling with the hem of the bathrobe. "Sometimes I come here at night." "What do you mean?" "When it's too cold or raining too hard, I jump over the back fence and sleep in the garden. It's warm near the barbecue. From there I can see into your study window when you work late." She looked at him with innocent eyes. "Sorry if I did something wrong." Arthur remained silent, processing this information. Lily had observed his routine for months, perhaps years, without him knowing. It was both touching and disturbing to think that while he worried about spreadsheets and contracts, a lonely child watched him from afar, perhaps dreaming of a different life. "Did you see other people here too?" "Yes, I did. The man in the grey suit who comes here often, you call him Michael. The woman with black hair who brought important papers last month, and—" Lily hesitated. "And? The stout accountant you argued with last week. He left here very angry and swore on his phone. Said you'd regret not trusting him." Arthur's heart pounded. She was talking about Mark Benson, his accountant of 5 years. They'd had a dispute over some accounting irregularities, but Arthur hadn't imagined the situation was so serious. "Lily, this is very important. Do you remember exactly what he said?" The girl closed her eyes, as if replaying a movie in her mind. "He said, 'That idiot doesn't know who he's messing with. Frank will love to know that saintly Arthur Davidson isn't as clean as he seems. I'll show him who really runs this town.'" The words hit Arthur like a punch to the gut. Mark was conspiring with Frank against him. The afternoon's humiliation hadn't just been personal revenge. It was part of a larger plan to destroy his reputation and his business. At that moment, the house phone rang. Maria answered and rushed upstairs, her face pale with worry. "Mr. Davidson, it's the police. They want to speak with you about a complaint of child abduction. Arthur's blood ran cold. He hurried downstairs, leaving Lily in the room under Maria's care, who tried to hide her nervousness by offering the girl cookies. On the phone, Detective Miller's voice sounded formal and suspicious. "Mr. Davidson, we received an anonymous tip that you are holding a minor in unlawful confinement. I need you to come to the precinct for clarification. Detective, I can explain everything. The child was living on the streets, and I merely offered temporary shelter. There's nothing improper. Do you have any documents proving legal guardianship of this child?" Arthur closed his eyes, knowing this was exactly the trap Frank had set. "Not yet, but my lawyer is arranging it." "So you are confirming that you do not have legal authorization to keep the child in your care?" "Detective, please. The girl needs help. She was sleeping on the street, going hungry." "Mr. Davidson, I understand your intentions, but the law is clear. I need you to bring the child to the precinct so we can refer her to the appropriate agencies." When he hung up, Arthur leaned against the hall table, feeling the weight of a well-engineered trap closing on him. Frank had twisted his attempt to help into evidence against him. Worse, if Lily went into the official system then, she would likely be sent to an overcrowded shelter or worse. She could simply disappear into the bureaucratic maze. "Mr. Davidson?" Lily's voice echoed from the top of the stairs. She had descended silently, wearing only an oversized t-shirt and shorts Maria had found for her. "What's happening?" "Maria is very nervous." Arthur looked at the small, vulnerable child, feeling a mix of protectiveness and despair. How could he explain to a 4-year-old that the adult world was so cruel it turned kindness into a crime? "Lily, some people didn't like you being here with me," he said, kneeling to her height. "They think I don't have the right to look after you." "Why not?" "You're good to me." "Because there are rules, and I should have followed them before bringing you home." Lily frowned, processing the information with her precocious intelligence. "It's the big man doing this, isn't it? He didn't like that I helped you." The girl's shrewdness impressed Arthur once more. "How do you know that?" "Because I've seen him do bad things to other people. In his back room, he talked to men about solving problems and teaching lessons. Once I saw him showing photos of people to another man, saying he was going to ruin their lives if they didn't obey." Arthur felt a shiver. "What other people, Lily? Do you remember their faces?" "Yes, I do. There's the pharmacy owner, the woman from the clothing store, the man who sells vegetables at the market. They all look scared when they talk to him." At that moment, Arthur understood that Frank wasn't just a resentful shopkeeper seeking personal revenge. He headed an extortion ring that controlled various establishments in town. And now, Lily had become a dangerous witness to be ignored. Arthur's cell phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson, his lawyer. "Arthur, I just heard about the complaint. This is serious. Whoever filed this accusation knows the law well and knows exactly where to strike. What do I do now?" "Well, legally, you have to hand the child over to the authorities. You have no choice. But I can try to expedite the temporary guardianship process, declare an emergency situation." "How long would that take?" "At least a week, more likely a month." "And that's if everything goes smoothly." Arthur looked at Lily, who was nervously playing with the water bottle she insisted on carrying everywhere. A month in the system would be an eternity for such a small child, especially one who possessed information that could put powerful people behind bars. "Mr. Henderson, I need another alternative. Arthur, don't do anything crazy. Any attempt to hide the child will only worsen your situation." After hanging up, Arthur remained silent for a few minutes, weighing his options. Just then, he heard a car coming up the steep drive leading to his house. Looking out the window, he saw a police cruiser approaching the gate. "Lily, come here," he called, his voice tense. "We need to talk about something very important." The girl approached, sensing the urgency in his tone. "Are you sending me away?" "Well, I don't want to, but some people are going to try and separate us. If that happens, I want you to know that I will fight to get you back, okay? What if they take me far away? What if I never see you again?" Arthur held Lily's small hands in his. That won't happen. But if it does, I want you to remember everything you saw and heard about the big man and his friends. Someday, that information will be very important. I remember everything, she said seriously. Even the things I don't want to remember. The doorbell rang, followed by firm knocks on the door. Maria rushed downstairs, looking at Arthur with tear-filled eyes. She had grown fond of the girl in the few hours they had spent together. "Mr. Davidson, what do I do?" "Answer it, Maria. We have no choice." Two officers entered the house. Sergeant Ryan, a stern man in his 40s, and Officer Emily, a young woman with a compassionate expression. They surveyed the luxurious surroundings with critical eyes, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Mr. Davidson, where is the child?" the sergeant asked. "Here," Lily said, appearing at the top of the stairs. She had put her old clothes back on, as if instinctively knowing she needed to return to who she was before. "Hello, dear," Officer Emily said softly. "My name is Emily. We've come to take you to a safe place." "I'm safe here," Lily replied, slowly descending the stairs. "Uncle Arthur takes good care of me. I'm sure he does, but there are rules we all need to follow. You'll be staying in a place with other children. It'll be fun." Lily looked at Arthur, her big eyes filled with a sadness that broke his heart. "You promised you'd protect me, and I will. This is just temporary, I promise." Sergeant Ryan approached Arthur. "Sir, I understand your intentions were good, but you should have gone through official channels first. Now we'll have to investigate if there was any irregularity." "What kind of investigation?" "We need to check for abuse, exploitation. These are standard procedures." The word abuse echoed through the house like a gunshot. Arthur realized Frank had been even more cruel in his revenge. Not only would he separate him from Lily, but he would cast suspicion on Arthur's motives, completely destroying his reputation. "Can I at least say goodbye to her properly?" Arthur asked. "Of course," Officer Emily said. Arthur knelt before Lily and whispered in her ear, "Remember everything you saw. And if anyone asks about the big man's back room, tell the truth. You can trust the social worker who will look after you." "Which social worker?" "A kind woman who will protect you. You'll recognize her when you see her." Lily nodded, hugged Arthur tightly and whispered back, "I know where the big man hides the important things. Under the floor of his back room there's a hole with a metal box." Before Arthur could ask for more details, Officer Emily gently took Lily's hand and led her towards the door. The little girl looked back one last time, memorizing every detail of the house where she had been happy for a few hours. As the police car disappeared down the road, Arthur stood on the porch, watching, until he could no longer see even the glint of the tail lights. Maria wept silently beside him, and he felt he had lost far more than a child. He had lost the chance to do something truly good in his life. The Harmony Springs Children's Center operated in an old building downtown, its walls peeling and barred windows looking more like a prison than a place of protection. Lily clutched her water bottle tightly as Officer Emily led her down the narrow corridors that smelled of disinfectant and sadness. "This is where you'll be staying for now, dear," Emily said, trying to sound cheerful. "There are other children your age." The dormitory she showed Lily had 8 iron beds lined up with grey sheets that had seen better days. 3 children played on the floor with broken toys, while an older girl, about 7, sat on a bed staring out the window with empty eyes. "This is Lily," Emily announced to the shelter worker, a tired 50-year-old woman named Sharon. "She'll need special attention. She has a very peculiar memory." Sharon barely looked up from the paperwork she was filling out. "Put her on the corner bed. Clothes are in the closet. Dinner's at 6. After Emily left, Lily was alone with the other children. The girl who had been looking out the window approached her curiously. "I'm Ashley," she said. "I've been here 2 years. Did you come from the streets too?" "I did," Lily replied, pressing the bottle against her chest. "But before that, I was in a beautiful house with a very kind man. If he was so kind, why are you here?" Lily didn't know how to answer. In truth, she didn't fully understand what had happened herself. She only knew that somehow, helping Arthur had triggered a series of events that brought her to this sad, rule-filled place. Meanwhile, 20 miles away, in a simple house on the outskirts of town, Deborah Hayes finished reading the report on a new case that had landed on her desk. At 38, she had dedicated her life to working as a social worker, specializing in at-risk children. But Lily's case intrigued her for reasons beyond the professional. The girl had been found on the streets, temporarily taken in by a millionaire businessman, and was now in the official system. What caught her attention most were Officer Emily's notes about the child's exceptional memory and her ability to recall impressive details about conversations and events she had witnessed. Deborah knew this kind of gift well. She herself had developed a sharp memory during her years as a street child, when survival depended on observing and remembering behavioral patterns, escape routes, and the faces of dangerous people. The difference was she had been lucky. An adoptive family had taken her off the streets at 8. Lily was still too young to understand the value and danger of what she possessed. Grabbing her purse and car keys, Deborah decided to visit the shelter. She wanted to personally meet the girl who had moved one of the most powerful men in town. Back at the children's center, Lily had spent the day observing the routine of the place. During lunch, she witnessed an argument between two staff members about lack of resources and overcrowding. In the afternoon, she saw one of the older girls being taken by a couple who came to get to know her better. But from the whispers she overheard, she understood that not all couples who visited had good intentions. Lily Santos, a soft voice called her name in the late afternoon. She turned and saw a beautiful woman with dark skin and curly hair pulled back in a bun, wearing simple but elegant clothes. There was something familiar in those kind eyes, as if Lily already knew her from somewhere. "Yes, that's me," she answered shyly. "My name is Deborah. I'm a social worker, and I've come to talk to you about your situation." Lily remembered Arthur's words about a kind woman who would protect her. Could Deborah be that person? "Would you like to talk somewhere more private?" Deborah asked, noticing how the other children clustered curiously around them. They sat in a small room that served as the shelter's library, surrounded by donated books and some scattered toys. Deborah watched intently as Lily settled into the chair, still clutching her bottle as if it were a talisman. "Is that bottle special to you?" Deborah asked. "It was my mama's," Lily said. "It's all I have of her. And I used it to help Uncle Arthur. Tell me about Uncle Arthur." For the next hour, Lily recounted in impressive detail everything that had happened, from the moment she saw Arthur being humiliated by Frank until her arrival at the shelter. Deborah took notes, impressed not only by the girl's precise memory, but also by her ability to perceive emotional nuances and connections between events. "Lily, you said you saw secret conversations in Frank's storage room. Can you tell me more about that?" Lily's eyes became distant, as if she were watching an internal movie. "There are 3 men who always go there. One is thin and wears glasses. I think he's someone's accountant. Another is bald and has a scar on his neck. The third is younger and always nervous. And what do they talk about?" "About spoiled food they send to the schools. About money disappearing from City Hall accounts. And about people who don't want to be part of their schemes." Lily paused, as if deciding whether to continue. "They speak badly about Uncle Arthur, saying he thinks he's too saintly and needs to be taught how things work in this town." Deborah felt a shiver. That child had witnessed conversations about corruption and extortion, possibly involving public funds meant for school lunches. If true, she was facing a scheme that directly affected the most vulnerable children in town. "Lily, what you're telling me is very serious. Are you sure about everything?" "Yes, I am. My head doesn't forget anything." Lily touched her forehead. "Sometimes I wish I could forget, because I remember bad things too. But Uncle Arthur said someday it would be important." "He said that. He did. And he said I'd recognize the kind person who would protect me." Lily looked directly into Deborah's eyes. "Is it you?" The direct, innocent question hit Deborah hard. There was something about that child that stirred all her protective instincts, perhaps because she saw in her the girl she herself had once been. vulnerable and alone on the streets, depending on the kindness of strangers to survive. "I'll do everything I can to protect you," Deborah promised. "But first I need to better understand the situation. Would you mind drawing the storage room where you heard those conversations?" Lily nodded and picked up a pencil and paper. In a few minutes, she had created a detailed map of Frank's storage room, including the exact location where she hid to overhear conversations, the position of furniture, and even the spot where she claimed to have seen Frank hide the metal box under the floor. "Incredible," Deborah murmured, examining the drawing. "Would you be able to lead someone to that place?" "I would, but—" Lily hesitated. "The big man can't know it was me who told, or he'll hurt Uncle Arthur." "Why do you think that?" "Because I heard him telling the thin accountant that he was going to destroy Uncle Arthur's life. He said that when he was finished with him, no one would want to do business with him anymore, and he'd be so poor he'd have to beg on the street." Deborah closed her notepad, her mind working quickly. She held information that could dismantle a corruption scheme, but also an extremely vulnerable child who could become a target for dangerous people if they knew what she knew. "Lily, I have a proposal for you. How about you come live with me for a few days? I have a small house, but it's cozy, and I can take better care of you while we sort this out." Lily's eyes lit up. "Really? Can I trust you?" "Yes, you can. And you know how I know you can?" "How?" Deborah rolled up her sleeve, revealing a small scar on her forearm. "Because I was a street kid too. I know what it's like to be alone, scared, depending on the kindness of others. And someone very special saved me when I needed it most. Now it's my turn to save you." Lily looked at the scar and then at Deborah's face, recognizing a kindred spirit. "You really do understand?" "Yes, I do. And together we'll figure out how to protect you and Uncle Arthur." That night, while filling out the paperwork for Lily's temporary guardianship, Deborah couldn't stop thinking about the implications of what she had discovered. She was sure that Arthur Davidson wasn't the villain of the story. On the contrary, he had been the victim of a well-orchestrated trap, but proving it would be more complicated than she imagined. On the other side of town, Arthur was in his study, looking out at the garden where Lily had played just hours before. He couldn't concentrate on work, disturbed by the memory of the girl's sad eyes when she was taken away. His cell phone rang. It was a message from an unknown number. "Now you know what it's like to lose something important. This is just the beginning." Deborah's house in Willow Creek was small but cozy, with yellow-painted walls and a backyard full of plants she tended herself. Lily observed every detail as Deborah led her through the rooms, from the simple but organized living room to the small bedroom that would be hers for a few days. "It's not as fancy as Uncle Arthur's house," Deborah said, "but you'll be safe here." "I like it," Lily replied, sitting on the small bed covered by a colorful patchwork quilt. "It looks like the houses I dreamed about when I slept on the streets." That night, after Lily fell asleep hugging her bottle, Deborah stayed up late researching Arthur Davidson. What she found surprised her. Far from being just a greedy businessman, he maintained discreet social programs, funded scholarships for underprivileged youth, and his name had never been involved in scandals. His reputation was solid until the incident with Lily. The next morning, Deborah took Lily to the Harmony Springs Elementary School, where she worked as a consultant. She wanted the girl to feel useful, while she discreetly investigated the complaints about school lunches. "Lily, I want you to observe everything here," Deborah said as they walked through the school corridors, "especially the kitchen and the cafeteria. Tell me if you see anything strange." During recess, Lily blended in with the other children, but her keen eyes catalogued every detail. She saw how the cafeteria workers whispered worriedly about the quality of the incoming food, how several children left food on their plates complaining about the bad taste, and notably, she saw a thin man with glasses talking to the principal and writing things on a clipboard. "Miss Deborah," Lily said when they met again, "the man with glasses talking to the principal is the same one I saw in Frank's storage room." Deborah's heart pounded. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. He has a small wart on his left hand and a dark stain on his front tooth. It's him, all right. And about the food? The kids don't like it. I heard some saying the milk's been sour for days, and the meat tastes weird. The cafeteria ladies are worried, but they can't complain because the principal won't let them. Deborah disguised the investigation as a routine visit, but when she discreetly examined the lunch program documents, she found glaring irregularities. The suppliers were always the same. Prices were inflated, and there were signatures on invoices for products that clearly didn't match what was being served. That afternoon, while Lily played in the backyard, Deborah made a risky decision. She called Arthur Davidson. "Mr. Davidson, this is Deborah Hayes, Lily's social worker. How is she? Is she well? Does she need anything?" His anxiety was palpable. "She's safe with me. But I need to talk to you about some things she told me. Where can we meet? It's risky. I'm sure we're being watched. But I know a place." They agreed to meet at the Old Mill District, an abandoned warehouse area on the edge of town where traders used to gather decades ago. It was a neutral location away from prying eyes. When Arthur arrived at the abandoned mill district late that afternoon, he found Deborah observing the old rusty machinery that had once processed tons of goods. She was nervous, constantly glancing around. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," he said. "How is Lily?" "Physically well, but emotionally shaken. She's grown very attached to you in a short time." "I've grown attached to her too," Arthur admitted. "There's something special about that child that moved me deeply. Mr. Davidson, I need you to tell me exactly what happened between you and Frank Faraz. And don't tell me it was just a business matter." For the next hour, Arthur recounted the entire story, from the broken contract with Frank's father years ago to the public humiliation he had endured. Deborah listened intently, making mental notes of every detail. "Did you know that your accountant, Mark Benson, is passing information to Frank?" "Lily told me, but I have no proof." "What if I told you I could get that proof?" Arthur looked at her with renewed interest. "How?" Lily saw where Frank hides important documents. She drew a detailed map of his storage room. "If we can get access to those documents, it would be too dangerous. If Frank discovers Lily was the one who told, that's why I need your help. You know the town, you have resources, contacts. Alone, I can't protect Lily and investigate at the same time." Arthur looked out the broken window of the old mill, seeing the cotton fields that stretched to the horizon. That land had been his family's livelihood for generations, but now he realized he had isolated himself from it, focusing only on profits and ignoring the social problems growing around him. "What do you propose?" "Partnership. I'll investigate officially through legal channels, while you use your resources to protect us and get information I can't obtain formally. And Lily, she stays with me until we sort this out. But I want you to know she talks about you constantly. She sees you as a father figure." The words hit Arthur hard. He had never been a father, never imagined himself in that role. But something in Lily had awakened instincts he didn't even know he possessed. At that moment, Deborah's cell phone rang. It was a message with a photo of Lily playing in her backyard, clearly taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. The message read, "We know where she is. Stop investigating or the girl disappears forever." Deborah showed the photo to Arthur, both feeling a chill down their spines. Frank wasn't just trying to destroy Arthur's reputation. He was directly threatening Lily's life. "He dared to threaten a child," Arthur murmured, his voice laced with a fury he rarely felt. "Now this has become personal. We have to get Lily out of my house immediately," Deborah said. "They know where she is. Where can we take her?" Deborah thought quickly. "I have a friend who lives on a secluded farm about 40 miles from here. She's a retired teacher, lives alone since her husband passed. She can shelter Lily for a few days. And after that we fight. We can't let Frank keep terrorizing innocent people." When they arrived at Deborah's house, they found Lily drawing in the backyard, seemingly oblivious to the danger surrounding her. But when she saw Arthur, her eyes lit up and she ran to hug him. "Uncle Arthur! I knew you'd come back." How did you know?" "Because you promised you'd protect me, and good people keep their promises." The girl's innocent trust strengthened Arthur's resolve. At that moment, he understood that Lily wasn't just a child he had happened to help. She had become his responsibility, his family, his chance for redemption. "Lily, we're going on a trip," Deborah said, trying to keep her tone casual. "To a very beautiful place in the countryside. All of us together?" "All of us together," Arthur confirmed, taking her small hand in his. As they prepared to leave, none of them noticed the dark car parked on the corner, nor the man discreetly photographing them through a zoom lens. The images would be sent to Frank in a few minutes, and he would be furious to discover that his targets were uniting against him. The war was just beginning, but now Arthur and Deborah knew they were fighting not just for justice, but for the life of an innocent child who had become the center of their existence. That night, as they drove down the dark roads towards the temporary refuge, Lily slept in the back seat, clutching her bottle. In the silence of the car, Arthur and Deborah knew there was no turning back. They had to see it through, no matter the cost. Carol Adams' farmhouse was at the end of a dirt road that wound through hills covered with dense woods. The simple wooden house with red tiles was surrounded by a wild garden where chickens roamed freely. When Deborah's car stopped in front of the wooden gate, a white-haired woman with a kind face came out onto the porch, wiping her hands on a floral apron. "Deborah, my dear." "What a lovely surprise," Carol said, hugging her friend. "And who are your companions?" "Carol, this is Arthur Davidson, and this is Lily, the girl I told you about. We need your help." Carol looked at Lily with special tenderness. "Hello, my dear. What beautiful eyes you have. Come in, come in. I just made some cornbread." Inside the cozy house, while Lily played with Carol's cats and explored the children's books the retired teacher kept, Deborah explained the situation. Carol listened in silence, her face growing progressively more serious. "This child is in real danger," she finally said. "Of course, she can stay here as long as she needs. But do you have a plan?" "We're working on it," Arthur replied. "First, we need to understand the extent of Frank's scheme. Then gather enough evidence to bring him down. And how do you intend to do that without putting Lily at greater risk?" It was Lily who answered, emerging from behind the bookshelf where she had been playing. "I can help. I know where the important things are." "No," Arthur said firmly. "It's too dangerous, but I'm small." "Nobody suspects a kid." Lily approached them, her eyes shining with determination. "And I want to help Uncle Arthur. He saved me, now it's my turn to save him." Deborah knelt down to the girl's height. "Lily, you've helped us so much by telling us what you saw. Now let the adults handle it, okay?" But you don't know the secrets like I do," Lily insisted. "There are things only I've seen, places only I know how to get to." That night, after Lily fell asleep in the guest room, the three adults talked in the kitchen late into the night. Carol brewed strong coffee and served homemade cookies as they planned their next steps. "I have contacts at City Hall," Arthur said. "People who can give me information about school lunch contracts without raising suspicion. And I have access to official files through my job," Deborah added. "I can cross-reference data and look for irregularities." "Something worries me," Carol said. "If this Frank is as dangerous as you say, he won't stay put. He'll try to find you." As if her words were prophetic, the house phone rang. Carol answered, frowning. "Hello? Who's calling?" She paused, listening. "I'm sorry, but I don't know any Lily." She hung up quickly, her face pale. "It was a man asking if I'd seen a girl named Lily. Said he was her relative." A tense silence fell over the kitchen. Frank had discovered where they were. "We have to leave here," Arthur said, standing up. "Where to?" Deborah asked. "He seems to have eyes everywhere." It was then that Carol had an idea. "I know a place, an abandoned cabin in the mountains, owned by a friend who passed away last year. It's in a secluded spot, no phone, no neighbors. If we can get there without being seen, it's risky," Arthur murmured. "Staying here is too," Deborah retorted. "At least there we'll have time to think." They decided to leave before dawn, when the roads would be deserted. Arthur and Deborah would take turns driving, taking secondary routes to avoid being followed. Carol insisted on accompanying them, claiming she knew the region better. At 4 in the morning, As they prepared to depart, Lily woke up and found the adults loading supplies into the car. "Are we traveling again?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "We are, darling," Carol said. "To an even safer place." "Okay, can I bring my drawings?" Deborah looked at the stack of papers Lily had produced the day before. Detailed maps, faces of people involved in the scheme, floor plans of buildings she had memorized. They were valuable evidence, but also dangerous. "Of course you can." The journey along the winding mountain roads took 3 hours. The sun was rising when they finally reached a wooden cabin nestled in a clearing surrounded by dense woods. The place was primitive. No electricity, just a diesel generator, well water, and a wood-burning stove. "It's not luxurious," Carol said, "but it's safe." Lily explored the cabin curiously, finding old books, board games, and a hammock on the porch where she could watch the birds. "I like it here," she announced. "It's like camping." Over the next few days, they established a routine. Carol looked after Lily, teaching her to cook on the wood stove and identify medicinal plants. Arthur used a satellite phone to make discreet contacts, while Deborah organized the information they possessed. It was during one of these organizing sessions that Lily made a surprising revelation. "Miss Deborah, I remembered something important," she said, interrupting the social worker's work. "What is it, dear?" "In Frank's back room, I saw him putting money in a suitcase. It was a lot of money, more than I'd ever seen in my life." "When did this happen?" Lily closed her eyes, concentrating. "It was last week before I met Uncle Arthur. He was counting the money with the man with glasses and the bald man. They talked about monthly payments and school quotas." Deborah felt her heart pound. "Lily, do you remember anything else about that conversation?" "Yes, I do. They talked about numbers. The man with glasses, Mark, said the downtown schools were bringing in $50,000 a month, and the ones on the outskirts $30,000. Frank got mad and said he wanted more. That's an extra $50,000 a month just from the downtown schools," Deborah murmured, doing mental calculations. "In a year, that's $600,000. It's an enormous amount." Arthur, who had overheard the conversation, approached. "That's why he wants to destroy me. My company provides transportation for some city schools. If I uncover his scheme, I can effect $1 million revenue stream." "There's more," Lily continued. "They talked about expanding to other cities. The bald man said he had contacts in Charleston and Augusta who wanted to get in on the business." The magnitude of the scheme was slowly revealing itself. It wasn't just local corruption. It was an organized network that could be spreading throughout the entire state. "We need to act fast," Deborah said, "before they have time to destroy evidence or move to other locations." "But how? We don't have access to his back room, and even if we did, it would be trespassing." It was then that Lily surprised everyone again. "I know how to get in without trespassing." "How?" "There's a hole in the back wall behind some old boards. It's tiny, only a child can fit through. That's how I used to get in when it rained really hard." "Absolutely not," Arthur said. "I won't let you put yourself in danger." "But it's the only way," Lily insisted. "And I want to do it. I want to help stop Frank's meanness." The discussion continued late into the night. Carol argued that Lily shouldn't be involved. Arthur was torn between the need for evidence and his protective instincts, and Deborah saw the logic in the girl's proposal, no matter how dangerous it was. "What if we do this?" Deborah finally suggested. "We go back to Harmony Springs, but just to observe. We study the routine of the storage room, the times Frank is there, the security measures. Only then do we decide if it's worth the risk, and if they discover we're back, we'll be careful. And if it goes wrong, at least we tried." Lily, who had been quiet during the discussion, stood up and walked to the window, looking at the stars that shone over the mountain. "My mama always said sometimes little people can do big things," she said softly. "I'm little, but I want to do something big. I want to help all the kids who eat bad food at school because of the mean man." The words deeply touched the 3 adults. In that 4-year-old child was a courage and determination that shamed many adults. "All right," Arthur finally said. "We'll go back to observe, but with great care. And if anything goes wrong, you two leave town immediately." The next morning they began preparations for their return to Harmony Springs. None of them knew that Frank had discovered the location of the mountain cabin and that armed men were already on their way, determined to silence the little girl who knew too much forever. The sound of branches breaking in the woods around the cabin woke Arthur before dawn. He rose silently, walking to the living room window. Through the curtains he caught a glimpse of movement among the trees, shadows moving in a coordinated fashion surrounding the property. "Deborah," he whispered, gently touching the social worker's shoulder. She had fallen asleep on the sofa. "We have company." Deborah woke instantly, her years working in high-risk situations sharpening her instincts. "How many?" "At least 3, maybe more. They're surrounding us." Carol appeared in the bedroom doorway, already dressed and alert. "I heard it too. There's a trail out back that leads to a valley. If we leave now, we can escape before they complete the encirclement. What about Lily?" "I'm already awake," the girl said, appearing behind Carol with her water bottle in hand and a small backpack she had prepared with her drawings. "I heard people crunching on dry leaves." Arthur was impressed by the child's calm. At 4 years old, she showed an adaptability that bordered on the acute survival instinct honed by life on the streets. "We have 5 minutes at most," Carol said, grabbing a flashlight and some provisions. "The trail is steep, but it leads to a secondary road where we can pick up the car I hid." They exited through the back door, Carol leading the way down the narrow trail that descended the mountain. Lily walked between Arthur and Deborah, her small feet making little noise on the loose stones. Behind them, the men's voices grew louder as they discovered the empty cabin. "This way," Carol whispered, indicating a fork in the trail that descended more steeply between moss-covered rocks. It was then that they heard shouts behind them. The men had discovered their escape and were running through the woods, breaking branches and shouting instructions to each other. The noise echoed through the mountains, startling birds that flew in confused flocks. "Run," Arthur said, scooping Lily into his arms to quicken his pace. The descent became a desperate race against time. Carol, despite her age, knew every stone on the path and guided them safely through the most dangerous stretches. Deborah helped when needed, always keeping an eye on the rear to see if they were being followed. 20 minutes later, they reached a small clearing where Carol had hidden an old but well-preserved car under a camouflaged tarp. "I thought I might need it someday," she explained, removing the cover quickly. They got in the car, Arthur in the driver's seat, and set off down the deserted roads of rural Georgia. Only when they were miles away from the mountain did they finally relax. "How did they find us?" Deborah asked. "Frank has more resources than we imagined," Arthur replied. "He's probably paying informants all over the region." "Where are we going now?" Lily asked. Carol looked at her in the rearview mirror. "I know a place in Charleston. A friend who works at a non-profit. We can stay there while we organize our next strategy." "No," Lily said firmly. "I want to go back to Harmony Springs." "Lily, it's too dangerous," Deborah protested. "But if we keep running, the mean man will keep hurting other people. And he'll think he won." Lily looked directly at Arthur. "You said sometimes we have to fight for what's right, even when it's hard." The girl's words struck Arthur deeply. She was right. Running forever wouldn't solve the problem. Frank would continue his schemes. Other children would continue to be harmed, and he himself would remain a fugitive in his own town. "She's right," he said after a long silence. "But if we go back, we'll do it the right way, with a solid plan." During the trip to Charleston, they carefully planned their strategy. Carol knew investigative journalists who could help expose the scheme. Deborah had contacts in the district attorney's office who could guarantee official protection. And Arthur had financial resources to fund a professional investigation. "The problem is we need concrete evidence," Deborah said. "Child testimony isn't enough in court. That's why we need to get into the storage room," Lily insisted. "The evidence is there." "It's too risky," Arthur repeated. "Uncle Arthur, you saved my life when you gave me a home. Now let me save yours." The determination in the girl's voice was touching. At 4 years old, she understood concepts of justice and sacrifice that many adults ignored. In Charleston, they stayed at the home of Regina Santiago, an attorney who ran a children's advocacy nonprofit. Regina was a strong 50-year-old woman with graying hair and eyes that had seen much injustice but still sparkled with hope. "This situation is more serious than you imagine," Regina said after hearing the full account. "If there really is a corruption network involving school lunches, we're talking about millions of dollars diverted and thousands of children harmed." "And what can we do?" Deborah asked. "First, document everything officially. Second, ensure protection for you, especially for Lily. Third, build a solid case that doesn't rely solely on her testimony." "How?" Regina smiled. "I know a district attorney in Harmony Springs, Richard Allen. He's a man of integrity and experienced with corruption cases. If we can convince him to open an official investigation, will he believe us? If we present the right evidence, yes." That night, while Lily slept in the guest room at Regina's house, the adults worked late organizing a comprehensive dossier. Deborah typed up all the reports Lily had given. Arthur provided information about the companies involved in public contracts, and Carol contributed her network of contacts to verify information. "Something bothers me," Regina said, examining the papers. "This Frank seems too small to be the head of an operation of this magnitude." "What do you mean?" Arthur asked. "Men like him are usually intermediaries. There's always someone bigger behind them, someone with enough political or economic power to protect the operation." Regina's observation made sense. Frank had resources and influence, but not enough to buy silence at so many different levels of public administration. Lily mentioned conversations about expanding to other cities, Deborah remembered. "That suggests a broader organization." "Exactly. And if that's the case, you're messing with very dangerous people." The next morning, Regina contacted District Attorney Richard Allen. They arranged a meeting for that afternoon in Charleston, away from the prying eyes of Harmony Springs. Richard was a 45-year-old man, short and discreet, but with intelligent eyes that missed no detail. He listened to the entire account attentively, asking precise questions and taking detailed notes. "The information is convincing," he finally said. "But to open an official investigation, I need more than testimonies." "What would be needed?" Arthur asked. "Physical evidence, documents, financial records, recordings, something that materially proves what you are alleging. And if we get that evidence, then we can act. But it has to be obtained legally, otherwise it's useless in court." It was the dilemma they feared. The evidence was in Frank's storage room, but any attempt to obtain it would be considered trespassing. "There is a legal way," Richard said thoughtfully. "If I can get a search warrant." "Based on what?" "On your testimonies and the irregularities in public contracts that I can investigate preliminarily. It's not much, but it might be enough to convince a judge." "How long would that take?" "A week, maybe 2. It was then that Lily, who had been quiet throughout the conversation, spoke up. "Mr. Richard, can I say something?" "Of course, my dear. The mean man is planning to leave town. I heard him talking about it with the man with glasses before I went to live with Uncle Arthur. He said if things got too hot, he'd vanish with everything." The silence that followed was heavy. "If Frank was planning to flee, 2 weeks could be too long." "Then we have to act faster," Richard said. "I'll try to get the warrant this week. What if you can't get it in time?" Richard looked at Lily, then at the adults. "Then we'll have to find another way, because letting a scheme like this continue isn't an option." That night, while having dinner at Regina's house, news came that changed everything. Carol received a call from a friend in Harmony Springs with alarming information. "Frank is gone," she announced after hanging up. "He closed his shop and no one knows where he is." The group exchanged glances with growing concern. If Frank had fled, taking the evidence with him, the entire investigation could have been in vain. "Not necessarily," Lily said, surprising everyone once more. "He's very attached to his money. He won't leave everything behind so easily. He must have hidden the important things somewhere." "How can you be sure?" "Because once I saw him counting money in his house, not in the back room. He has a safe under the stairs, another revelation that changed everything." If the evidence was in Frank's house, the situation was even more complicated. The news of Frank's disappearance brought a new urgency to the group. Regina spent the entire night on the phone with her contacts, trying to find out where he might have fled, while Richard worked frantically to speed up the warrant process. "I found out something interesting," Regina announced the next morning, entering the room where everyone was having coffee. "Frank bought a bus ticket to Jacksonville last night, but my source at the bus station says he didn't board. So he's still in the region," Arthur concluded. "Probably. He must be waiting for the right moment to leave for good." Lily, who had been quiet since waking up, suddenly became animated. "I know where he might be." "Where?" everyone asked simultaneously. "At the bald man's farmhouse." Once I heard them talking about a safe place to hide if something went wrong. The bald man said he had a secluded property where no one would look. Deborah leaned forward. "Lily, do you remember where that farmhouse is?" "Not exactly, but I remember them talking about the waterfall road and after the wooden bridge." Regina grabbed a map of the region. "There's only one waterfall road around here. It's about 40 miles from Harmony Springs. And there's an old wooden bridge halfway." "Perfect," Arthur said. "Let's go check it out." "No, we're not," Regina corrected firmly. "You'll stay here. I'll go with some friends who can help discreetly." "I want to go," Lily said. "If it's the right place, I might recognize it." "Absolutely not," Deborah said. "It's too dangerous. But if you don't take me, how will you know if it's the right place? There are lots of farms around here." Lily's argument had logic, but the adults were reluctant to put her at risk again. It was Richard who suggested an alternative. "What if we do a reconnaissance from a distance first? With binoculars, we'll check if it's the right location. Only then do we decide how to proceed." "I can accept that," Arthur agreed. But with all possible precautions, they left in the middle of the afternoon in 2 cars, Regina with 2 of her contacts who had investigation experience, and Arthur with Deborah, Lily, and Carol in the second vehicle. The waterfall road was an old logging trail, narrow and winding through hills, covered with dense woods. "There's the bridge," Lily pointed out when they reached a small wooden bridge over a stream. After that, they talked about going up the hill. They continued for another 10 miles until they found a dirt road that climbed steeply up the hillside. Regina stopped the first car and walked over to them. "Let's leave the cars here and continue on foot," she said. "If it's the right place, we don't want to be seen arriving." The hike up the hill took 20 minutes. At the top, hidden behind a rock formation, they could observe a small, seemingly abandoned farmhouse in the valley below. There was a simple house, a large shed, and some empty corrals. "It's here," Lily whispered, excited. "I recognize the shape of the shed. And look, there are 2 cars parked there." Regina grabbed the binoculars and examined the property. "There's movement in the house. I can see people coming and going." "How many?" "At least 3, and... Wait, there's a woman too. Elegant. She doesn't look like the type to frequent abandoned farmhouses." Arthur took the binoculars and watched. His blood ran cold when he recognized the female figure. "My God, what is it?" Deborah asked. "It's Veronica Stone, former Harmony Springs Secretary of Education. She left office 2 years ago amidst price-gouging scandals." "Then she's the head of the operation," Regina murmured. "That explains how they managed to protect the scheme for so long." Lily frowned, concentrating. "I remember her. She went to Frank's storage room once. She spoke in an angry voice about increasing production and expanding operations." "Veronica was always ambitious," Arthur said. "When she was secretary, there were rumors of irregularities, but she had political protection. They never could prove anything." "Now I understand why Frank felt so secure," Deborah said. "With someone like Veronica protecting the operation?" Regina was thoughtful. "If we can get evidence against her, we can dismantle the entire network. But it has to be solid, irrefutable. The safe," Lily remembered. "If she's here, she might have brought the important documents from Frank's house. Or she might have come to pick something up," Carol suggested. They observed for another hour, documenting everything they saw. Regina took discreet photos with a long-range camera, while Arthur noted license plates and times of movement. It was then that they saw Veronica leave the house, carrying a large briefcase and heading for one of the cars. She seemed nervous, constantly looking around as if expecting to be attacked at any moment. "She's fleeing too," Regina said. "We're going to lose her. There's nothing we can do from here," Arthur muttered, frustrated. "Yes, we can," Lily suddenly said. "I can go into the house." "No way!" Arthur and Deborah exclaimed in unison. "But look, only Frank and the bald man are inside now. If I'm small and careful—" "Lily, that's crazy," Carol protested. "It's our only chance," the girl insisted. "You saw the woman took a briefcase. If she's taking the evidence away, there'll be nothing left soon." Regina watched the discussion with interest. "Actually, the idea isn't entirely absurd. A small child can go unnoticed where an adult would be immediately spotted." "Regina!" Deborah exclaimed, horrified. "Calm down, let me finish. I'm not suggesting she enters the house. But if we can create a distraction, maybe she can get close enough to see what's happening inside." "What kind of distraction?" "My friends can pretend to be utility company technicians checking the power grid. That would explain their presence in the area and force Frank to come out of the house to talk to them." Arthur shook his head. "It's still too risky." "Uncle Arthur," Lily said, holding his hand, "remember when you told me sometimes we have to be brave to protect the people we love?" "I love you, Miss Deborah, Miss Carol, and I want to protect all the kids who are suffering because of these mean men." The girl's words touched Arthur deeply. At 4 years old, she showed a courage and determination that many adults lacked. "If we do this," he said slowly, "it has to be with all possible precautions. Any sign of danger, Lily leaves immediately." "Agreed," Lily said, smiling. Regina coordinated the operation like an experienced military officer. Her two friends went down to the property, pretending to be from the utility company, while she, Arthur, and the others watched from strategic positions. Lily would go down a side trail that would lead her to the back of the house, where she could observe unseen. "Remember," Regina said, "this is just reconnaissance. We're not trying to retrieve anything today. We just want to confirm what's happening in there." The operation began when the two men knocked on the house door, claiming a power grid problem in the area. As predicted, Frank came out to talk to them, clearly irritated by the interruption. Lily crept silently down the trail, her years living on the streets making her practically invisible in the natural environment. She reached a back window of the house and carefully peered in. What she saw astonished her. Documents were scattered across a large table. Stacks of money were being counted by the bald man, and most importantly, an open safe in the corner of the room with more papers and various storage media. But it was what she heard that truly shocked her. The bald man was on the phone, and his words made Lily's blood run cold. "Yes, Veronica. The businessman and the social worker are in the area. Our informants saw them coming up the hill an hour ago. Do you want me to deal with them permanently?" Lily realized they had fallen into a trap. Frank and his accomplices knew they were being watched. The farmhouse wasn't a hiding place, it was an ambush. She tried to run back to warn the others, but it was too late. Men emerged from the surrounding woods, encircling their positions. The little girl hid behind a bush, watching in horror as Arthur, Deborah, Regina, and Carol were captured one by one. Now she was alone again, but this time she carried information that could save not only her friends, but dozens of other children. The problem was, how could a 4-year-old girl face an entire criminal organization? Hidden behind the bush, Lily watched her friends being led to the shed on the farm. Her heart pounded so hard, she feared someone might hear it. At 4 years old, she faced the most terrifying situation of her life, but her sharp mind worked quickly, processing options and possibilities. She knew she couldn't confront the armed men directly, but she also knew that fleeing would mean abandoning the only people who truly cared about her. She took a deep breath, remembering Arthur's words about courage, and decided to act. First, she needed to better understand the situation. She crawled silently around the property, using bushes and rocks for cover. From outside the shed, she managed to overhear part of the conversation between Frank and the bald man. "The woman and the old lady could be useful as bargaining chips," the bald man was saying. but the businessman knows too much. And the girl disappeared, Frank replied, clearly irritated. She must have run off when she saw the commotion. Better that way, a dead child would raise too many questions. Veronica won't like it. She wanted to solve all outstanding issues at once. Veronica will have to accept it. We can't look for a 4-year-old in dense woods. Lily felt a mix of relief and determination. They thought she had fled, which gave her an advantage. But it also confirmed that her friends were in mortal danger. She continued to watch until she saw Frank leave the shed and enter the house. It was her chance. She approached one of the side windows of the shed and peered inside. Arthur, Deborah, Regina, and Carol were sitting on the floor, their hands tied behind their backs. The bald man and 2 other men guarded them, but seemed relaxed, talking about football as they drank beer. Lily realized she needed outside help. She remembered the satellite phone Arthur carried in his jacket pocket, if she could get to it. But first she had a better idea. Regina had mentioned that her friends had investigation experience. Maybe they were undercover police or something. If she could find them. She crawled back through the woods to where they had left the cars. To her luck, the 2 men who had posed as utility technicians were still there, hiding behind a rock formation. When they saw her approaching, they were surprised. "Little girl, I thought you had been captured with the others," whispered one of them, a dark-haired man in his 40s. "They didn't see me," Lily replied. "But the others are locked in the shed. There are armed men there." The second, younger man grabbed a discreet radio. "We have a situation. We need backup." "Are you police?" Lily asked. "Yes, we're special investigators. Regina called us to help with the case." Lily felt a wave of hope. "So you can save my friends?" "We'll try, but it's complicated. How many men did you see there?" 3 in the shed plus Frank in the house. "And more people are arriving. I saw 2 cars coming up the road." The older officer spoke into the radio again, relaying the information. Then he turned to Lily. "I need you to tell us everything you saw and heard. Every detail could be important." Lily meticulously recounted everything she had witnessed, the conversations she overheard, the location of documents in the house, the open safe, and especially the threats against her friends. "This Veronica really is behind everything?" the younger officer murmured. "We need to catch her before she escapes for good." "She already left here," Lily reminded them. "I saw her leave with a briefcase." "Where to?" "I don't know, but I heard the bald man on the phone saying she was going to the agreed-upon location. Said something about the airport." The 2 officers exchanged glances. "She's probably going to try to leave the country. We have to act fast." At that moment, reinforcements arrived. 3 unmarked vehicles silently climbed the road, bringing more police specialized in rescue operations. The operations commander, a Captain Jones, listened to Lily's account with increasing attention. "This girl has valuable information," he said after the briefing, "but she's also in danger. She needs to stay away from the action." "No," Lily said firmly. "I want to help save my friends. It's too dangerous for a child. But I know parts of the property you don't, and I know where the important documents are." Captain Jones thought for a moment. "What are you proposing?" "Let me show you a way to get into the house without being seen. There's a back entrance, only I know how to use." After much discussion, they agreed on a modified plan. Lily would guide them to the property and show them the secret entrance, but would remain in a safe location while they carried out the rescue. The operation began at dusk. Lily had done her part, guiding them to the back service gate and showing them the safest way to reach the house. Now she was in the van with Regina, watching through night vision equipment as the police infiltrated the property. Everything seemed to be going well until they saw a familiar figure emerging from the back of the house. It was Frank, carrying a large suitcase and briskly walking towards a car hidden among the trees. "He's escaping!" Regina exclaimed, speaking into the radio to alert the team. But at the same moment, lights went on all over the property, and the sound of gunfire began to echo. Veronica had prepared an ambush again. "They knew we were going to attack today," Regina said, desperate. "How is that possible?" Lily watched the chaos through the equipment when something caught her attention. A man she recognized was talking to Veronica on the porch of the house. It was District Attorney Richard Allen, the prosecutor who should have been helping them. "Now I understand how they always knew our plans," she muttered. In the house, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The police were cornered, facing more resistance than they expected. Over the radio, Jones reported that they urgently needed reinforcements. It was then that Lily made a decision that would change everything. "Miss Regina, I need to go in there." "Absolutely not. But I know something that can help. I remember the mean woman has a panic button in her study. If someone presses it, the real police will come." "How do you know that?" "Because once I saw her showing it to her friends, saying if someone tried to rob her, she just had to press the button, and the police would be there in 5 minutes. Regina saw the logic of the idea, but still hesitated. "It's too dangerous for a child. I'm small and I know how to hide. I can get in there without anyone seeing me." Before Regina could stop her, Lily exited the van and disappeared into the darkness. Her experience living on the streets had taught her to move silently, and she knew every corner of that property. She managed to enter the house through the same service window she had shown the police. The interior was chaotic, with men running back and forth, shouts and the noise of radios. Taking advantage of the confusion, she climbed the stairs towards Veronica's study. On the second floor, she found the study door ajar. She could see Veronica inside, stuffing a briefcase with documents and pendants, clearly preparing to flee as soon as the situation calmed down. Lily waited until Veronica left the study for a moment, then crept inside. She remembered exactly where the panic button was, behind the desk, in a discreet but accessible position. But when she tried to reach the button, her height wasn't enough. She had to climb onto a chair, making noise in the process. "Who's there?" Veronica shouted, rushing back into the study. When she saw Lily, her eyes widened in surprise and anger. "The street child. How dare you enter my house?" "I won't let you keep hurting the children," Lily said, trying to reach the button. Veronica lunged towards her, but Lily was faster. She managed to press the panic button before being grabbed. "You filthy brat. You ruined everything," Veronica shrieked, holding Lily tightly. "Now the real police are coming," Lily said, showing no fear. "And you're going to jail." "Not if I use you as a shield," Veronica retorted, dragging Lily towards the balcony. Outside, police sirens could already be heard in the distance, growing closer. The panic button had worked, automatically alerting the emergency center. On the balcony, Veronica shouted to her men, "Stop shooting! I have the girl!" The gunfire ceased immediately. Everyone knew Lily was too precious to be put at risk. "Let me out of town or I'll hurt the child," Veronica threatened. Arthur appeared in the garden, his hands raised in surrender. "Veronica, leave the girl. Your fight is with me. It's not just with you anymore. This brat ruined years of work. She's just a child. She did nothing but try to survive. She saw too much, knows too much. She should have vanished on the streets like all the others." Veronica's words revealed a coldness that shocked even her own men. It was clear that to her, poor children were disposable, mere obstacles to her profits. It was at this moment that the patrol cars of the local police arrived, alerted by the panic button. These were police not involved in the conspiracy, honest officers responding to an emergency call. "Drop your weapons! Everyone on the ground!" the new officers shouted. The arrival of the clean police completely changed the dynamic of the situation. Veronica's men, realizing they now faced legitimate authorities, began to surrender. But Veronica still held Lily on the balcony, desperate and increasingly unstable. "If I can't have my freedom, at least I'll get rid of this pest," she screamed, pushing Lily towards the balcony railing. It was then that something unexpected happened. Mark Benson, the accountant who had betrayed Arthur, appeared behind Veronica. "Enough, Veronica. This has gone too far," he said, grabbing her arms. "Mark, what are you doing?" "Saving what's left of my conscience," he replied, taking Lily from her hands. "Participating in corruption is one thing. Hurting children is something else entirely." The twist surprised everyone. Mark handed Lily to Arthur, who had rushed up the stairs, and then helped immobilize Veronica until the police arrived. "Why?" Arthur asked his former accountant. Because when I saw this little girl willing to risk her life to save you, I realized I had completely lost my way. She's 4 years old and braver than I ever was. As Veronica was handcuffed and led away by the police, Lily hugged Arthur tightly. She had succeeded. The panic button had brought real help, and Veronica was finally arrested. But there was still one missing piece in the puzzle. Where was Frank? And what other secrets would the house's basement reveal? Veronica's mansion's basement proved to be a true criminal operations center. When police descended the hidden stairs behind a false bookcase, they found an environment that looked more like a corporate office dedicated to crime. Modern computers, organized files, maps of the region with schools marked, and most shocking of all, stacks of money organized by denomination on metal shelves. Lily, accompanied by Arthur and Deborah, went down to see the discovery. Her big eyes absorbed every detail, cataloging information her exceptional memory would retain forever. "It's bigger than I remembered," she said, observing the space. "When I peeked last time, I only saw a small part." Captain Jones coordinated the evidence collection while explaining the magnitude of the discovery. "We found fake supply contracts for over 40 schools in the region, spreadsheets detailing how much each school earned monthly, and correspondence with contacts in other cities." "How much money is here?" Regina asked, impressed by the organized stacks. "Initial estimate, over $2 million, all in cash, probably to facilitate transport and avoid bank traces." Deborah examined some documents that had been left on a table. "Look at this. They had an expansion schedule for the entire state of Georgia. Charleston, Augusta, Macon, dozens of cities. And look at these reports," one of the investigators added. "They documented everything. How many children got sick from spoiled food, how many schools complained, how they dealt with each problem." Arthur picked up one of the reports, his face contorting in disgust as he read. They knew they were harming children and treated it as an acceptable operational cost. It was Lily who made the most important discovery. Exploring a darker corner of the basement, she found a special file locked in a metal drawer. "Uncle Arthur, there's something here," she called. When they forced the drawer open, they found documents that revealed the true extent of the corruption. They weren't just school lunch contracts. There were bribes for health inspectors, payments to local politicians, and most importantly, a complete list of everyone involved in the operation. "Richard Allen is here," Jones said, reading the names. "He received $50,000 a month to guide investigations in the wrong direction. And look at this," Deborah said, pointing to another document. "They had a plan to eliminate anyone who asked too many questions. There's a list of problematic targets." Arthur felt his blood run cold when he saw his own name at the top of the list, followed by "High priority, neutralize immediately." Just below was Deborah's name, and even more alarmingly, there was a note about Lily. "Child witness, locate and silence permanently." "They were planning to eliminate us from the start," he murmured. "But they didn't succeed," Lily said simply, "because we're smarter than them." As investigators continued to catalogue the evidence, news arrived that worried everyone. Frank had been seen at the bus station, trying to board a bus to Jacksonville. "We had a team there, but he managed to escape at the last minute," an officer reported via radio. "How does he always know where we are?" Deborah asked, frustrated. It was Mark Benson, who had continued collaborating with the investigation since changing sides, who provided the answer. "Frank has informants in several places, the bus station, the airport, even some police officers. Veronica built a much larger corruption network than you imagine, so he could be going anywhere," Jones said. "No," Lily said thoughtfully. "He won't go far." "Why do you think that?" "Because he's very attached to his money, and he has money hidden in other places he won't want to abandon." Lily was right. 2 hours later, they received a call that changed everything. Frank had not left town. He was hiding in his own house, trying to retrieve valuables he kept buried in the backyard. "My neighbor called, saying she saw strange movement at his house," the officer who brought the information explained. "Lights turning on and off, digging noises in the yard." "It's our chance," Jones said. "This time we'll surround him completely." "Can I come too?" Lily asked. Absolutely not, Arthur and Deborah replied simultaneously. The citizen. But I know his house. I know where the hiding spots are. Lily, you've risked your life more than enough, Arthur said. Now it's time to let the police do their job. But when they arrived at Frank's house, they discovered he had prepared for a final confrontation. He had barricaded all entrances and positioned himself strategically to resist any attempt at arrest. "Frank Ferraz, you are surrounded," Jones shouted through a megaphone. "Come out with your hands up." "Never," Frank shouted back. "I'd rather go out my way than go to jail." The standoff lasted hours. Frank refused all attempts at negotiation, and the police couldn't approach without exposing themselves to gunfire. It was then that Lily had an idea. "He knows me," she said to Arthur. "If I talk to him? No way, not to get close, just to talk. He can hear me without seeing me." After much discussion and against all safety protocols, they allowed Lily to try to establish communication with Frank. They positioned her behind an armored car, with full protection, but from where her voice could be heard. "Mr. Frank," she shouted. "It's Lily." There was silence on the other side. Then Frank's surprised voice. "The street kid? What are you doing there?" "I came to talk to you about something important." "What thing?" About the mean woman who bossed you around. She's already in jail, and she told a bunch of lies about you to the police. It was a risky strategy, but Lily knew that playing on Frank's ego and paranoia could work. "What lies?" he shouted, clearly interested. "She said you were just her employee, that you didn't know anything important, that if you got arrested it wouldn't make any difference." The silence that followed was tense. Everyone could imagine Frank processing this information, his anger growing against Veronica. "She really said that?" He finally yelled. "Yes, she did, and she laughed when they said you might get away. Said you were never really important. That was the last straw." The front door burst open violently, and Frank came out, not with his hands up, but carrying a suitcase and screaming about how he was going to prove he was more important than Veronica. "I'll tell everything. Everything she did. I'll show who really ran the operations," he bellowed as the police surrounded him. Lily's strategy had worked perfectly. By attacking Frank's ego and making him believe Veronica had betrayed him, she got him to come out voluntarily, and more importantly, willing to confess everything to get revenge on his former boss. When the handcuffs were placed on Frank, he continued to shout details about the operation, names of involved politicians, locations of other safes, bank account numbers. Every word he said was new evidence against the corruption network. "Incredible," Jones murmured, watching Frank being placed in the police car. "A 4-year-old girl achieved what hours of professional negotiation couldn't." "She understands people," Deborah said, hugging Lily. "She sees things we adults miss." "Now is it over?" Lily asked. "The mean men won't hurt the children anymore." Arthur knelt to her height. "Because of you, yes. You saved not only us, but hundreds of children who were being harmed by the bad food in schools. And are we still going to be a family?" "Forever," he promised, knowing this time he could keep the promise. But there was still one last surprise waiting for them. The next day, as the investigation was being finalized, Mark Benson approached Arthur with an unexpected proposal. "I want to fully redeem myself," he said, "and I have an idea of how to use all this recovered money for something good. What do you have in mind?" "A children's center for homeless kids, right here in Harmony Springs. With Deborah running it and you funding it, it would be a way to turn all this suffering into something positive." The idea deeply touched Arthur. It was an opportunity to honor everything Lily had taught him about courage, generosity, and hope. 3 months after Veronica and Frank's arrest, Harmony Springs had become a different town. The investigation triggered by Lily's information revealed a corruption scheme that extended far beyond what anyone had imagined. 23 people were arrested, including politicians, businessmen, and public officials. The recovered money amounted to nearly $5 million. Lily walked through the construction site of what would be the Hope Haven Children's Center. watching with fascination the workers raising the walls of the building that had been her secret dream since she lived on the streets. Arthur and Deborah accompanied her, both impressed by how interested the girl was in every detail of the construction. "Will the cafeteria be really big?" did she ask the supervising engineer. "Yes, little one, with capacity for 100 children seated at once. And the food will always be fresh and delicious. And will there be a library?" Of course. 2 floors just of books and educational games." Lily smiled, imagining dozens of children like her having access to a safe place, good food, and opportunity to learn. It was more than she had dreamed of when she slept in the alley behind Frank's shop. "Miss Deborah will take care of all the children?" she asked. "I'll have a big team to help me," Deborah replied. "Social workers, psychologists, teachers, nurses. But yes, I'll always be here to look after everyone. And Uncle Arthur. I'll help with anything needed. And I'll visit often to see how you're all doing." "All of us? Am I going to live here too?" Arthur and Deborah exchanged glances. It was a conversation they needed to have for weeks, but always postponed, fearing Lily's reaction. "Actually," Arthur said, kneeling to her height, "we have a different proposal for you." "What proposal?" "Deborah and I talked a lot about it. How about you come live with me at the mansion? You'd be my daughter for real, legally adopted. And Deborah would be, well, she'd be like a mom to you too." Lily blinked several times, processing the information. "Are you two getting married?" "If you approve," Deborah said, smiling. "We discovered we love each other, but we also discovered we love you even more. And can I still visit the kids at the center?" "Whenever you want," Arthur promised. "In fact, we thought you could help other children who come to the center. Be like an older sister who understands what they've been through." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but this time, tears of pure joy. "So I'll have a real family, and I can still help other kids?" "Exactly," Deborah said, hugging her. That night, at the mansion where it had all begun, the 3 dined together as a family. Maria, the housekeeper, had prepared Lily's favorite dish, chicken and okra with rice, and watched with tears in her eyes as the girl who had arrived scared and hungry had transformed into a confident and happy child. "Mr. Davidson," Maria said after Lily went to sleep, "I've never seen you as happy as you are now." "It's true. Maria, this little girl taught me what really matters in life, and Miss Deborah is perfect for you too. She has a big heart and loves little Lily as if she were her own daughter." In the bedroom that had been specially prepared for her, Lily organized her drawings in a new folder Arthur had bought. There were hundreds of pages showing her journey, from the sad birds she drew when she lived on the street to the colorful free birds representing her new life. "May I come in?" Deborah asked, tapping lightly on the door. "Yes, Mama Deborah." It was the first time Lily had called her that, and Deborah felt her heart warm. She sat on the bed beside the girl, looking at the drawings. "Did you keep them all?" "All of them. Because each one tells a part of my story, the sad ones and the happy ones. And which is your favorite drawing?" Lily searched among the papers and pulled out a special drawing, made with colored pencils on a large sheet, showing a yellow house surrounded by flowering gardens. In front of the house, 3 figures holding hands: a tall man, a woman with curly hair, and a small girl. Round them dozens of children played happily, all protected by colorful birds flying in circles above the scene. "This one," Lily said. "It's our family taking care of all the children who need love." "It's beautiful," Deborah said, moved. "And you know what else? It's going to come true very soon." A week later, the day of Veronica and Frank's trial arrived. Lily had to testify, but this time as a protected minor, with full psychological and legal support. Her exceptional memory and ability to recount details impressed the court. "The child is a remarkable witness," the judge said during the proceedings. "Her courage in facing people who threatened her and her determination to protect other children are exemplary." Veronica was sentenced to 20 years in prison for racketeering, corruption, money laundering, and threatening a minor. Frank received 15 years for the same crimes. Richard, the corrupt prosecutor, was removed from office and sentenced to 10 years. But there was a twist no one expected. During his testimony, Mark Benson revealed information that led to the discovery that the scheme had even broader ramifications. There are records of similar operations in at least 12 cities in rural Georgia, he declared to the court. Veronica was just one of the regional coordinators. There's someone bigger behind all this. The revelation shocked everyone present. It meant that even with the arrest of the main perpetrators in Harmony Springs, other children in other towns were still being harmed by the same type of scheme. Who is behind it? The prosecutor asked. A businessman from Charleston, whom I only knew by the codename The Doctor. I never met him personally, but he coordinated operations in several cities through a network of intermediaries. Lily, seated in the protected witness area, listened attentively. Her sharp mind processed the information, connecting dots that the adults might have missed. After the trial, as they walked through the courthouse corridors, she tugged on Arthur's hand. Uncle Arthur, I remembered something important. What was it, dear? In Frank's back room, once I heard him on the phone with someone he called the Doctor. The man spoke with a different accent, like people from Charleston. Do you remember anything specific, they said? Lily closed her eyes, accessing her photographic memory. The man said the rural operations were doing very well and that he was going to expand to New York. Frank asked if he could move up the hierarchy, and the man laughed, saying he was too useful where he was. The information was too valuable to ignore. Arthur immediately sought out Captain Jones, who was coordinating an expanded investigation into the corruption network. This girl is an inexhaustible source of information, Jones said after hearing the account. We'll pass everything on to the FBI. If there really is a national operation, they need to know. 2 weeks later, Lily was in the mansion's garden playing with her new books when Arthur arrived with extraordinary news. Remember the doctor you heard on the phone? He asked. Yes, I remember. The FBI arrested him yesterday. And you know how they did it? Using the information you provided, they traced the calls and uncovered the entire network. So now, no more children are suffering because of bad food. Not just in Harmony Springs, but in over 15 cities. All because of your courage and your incredible memory. Lily smiled, hugging the water bottle she still carried everywhere. No longer out of necessity, but as a reminder of how far she had come. Do you know what that means? Arthur continued. What? That you saved hundreds of children you don't even know. In cities you haven't even visited. You are a true hero. I'm not a hero, Lily said simply. I just did what was right. Mama always said when you can help, you have to help. That night, as the family had dinner together, Arthur, Deborah, and Lily, they planned the final details of the Hope Haven Children's Center, which would open the following month. How many children can live there? Lily asked. 50 in full-time care, Deborah replied, and another 100 who can come during the day for activities, meals, and school support. And will they all have good food, and the best food possible? Arthur promised. With nutritionists overseeing every meal, Lily nodded, satisfied. It was everything she had always dreamed of, a place where children like her wouldn't have to go hungry, cold, or scared. But best of all was that she herself would have a family to call her own, people who loved her not for what she could do, but simply for who she was. Outside the mansion, birds sang in the garden trees, free and happy, just like in the drawings Lily had learned to make, since discovering that not all birds needed to live in cages. 6 months later, on a sunny December morning, Harmony Springs woke up to the most special day the town had seen in decades. It was the official inauguration of the Hope Haven Children's Center, but it would also be the day of a revelation that would forever change the perspective on the whole story they had lived. Lily woke early, wearing a new blue dress Deborah had bought especially for the occasion. Her hair, now always clean and well-kept, gleamed in the sun streaming through her bedroom window at the mansion. She was no longer the thin, scared girl who lived on the streets. She had grown, gained healthy weight, and most importantly, Her eyes sparkled with a confidence that only true love can provide. "Ready for the big day?" Arthur asked, entering the room with a smile. "Ready, Daddy," Lily replied, naturally using the word that had taken months to finally say. The adoption had been finalized 2 weeks prior, in a simple ceremony at the courthouse, where Lily finally received an updated birth certificate, Lily Santos Davidson Hayes. The compound name represented her new family, Davidson from Arthur, Hayes from Deborah, but keeping Santos in honor of the biological mother who had left this world when she was 2. When they arrived at the center, a crowd was already gathered at the entrance. Journalists, authorities, town families, and most importantly, dozens of curious children eager to see the place that would be a new home for many of them. "Look how many people," Lily said, impressed. "Everyone came to see what you helped create," Deborah said, taking her hand. The governor of Georgia was present, as was the mayor of Harmony Springs and various representatives of child protection organizations. But who caught Lily's attention most was an elderly man with white hair who watched the ceremony from afar, with tears in his eyes. "Who is that man?" she asked Arthur. Arthur looked in the indicated direction and his face paled. "It can't be." "What is it?" Deborah asked, concerned. "That man is John Peterson, Joanna's father." The revelation hit the three like a lightning bolt. Lily's biological grandfather, whom she didn't even know existed, was there, observing the granddaughter he hadn't seen since she was a baby. "He's my grandpa?" Lily asked, her big eyes fixed on the distant man. "Yes," Arthur said. "But he disappeared after Joanna left. No one knew where he was." John Peterson noticed he was being watched and, after hesitating for a few moments, walked slowly towards them. He was a simple man, modestly but cleanly dressed, with hands calloused from work and eyes that reflected years of regret and sadness. "Lily," he said with a trembling voice as he approached, "my little granddaughter." "Hi, Grandpa," Lily said shyly but without fear. "I remember you. You used to visit me when I was little." "You really remember?" John asked, kneeling to her height. "Yes, I do. You gave me fig Newtons and told me stories about magic birds." John began to cry openly. "I thought I'd lost you forever when my daughter left. Carol said she'd taken you out of town. Why didn't you look for her?" Deborah asked gently. "Because I was a coward," John admitted. "After I lost my wife and my daughter, I couldn't bear the pain. I went off to the countryside trying to forget everything. But I never managed to forget my little granddaughter." "And how did you know she was here?" Arthur asked. "I saw it on TV, the story of a brave little girl who helped dismantle a corruption scheme. When they showed her face, I recognized it immediately. She has the same eyes as my Joanna." Lily looked at Arthur and Deborah, then at John. "Grandpa, do you want to meet my new family? If they'll permit it." "Of course," Arthur said, extending his hand to the elderly man. "Any family of Lily's is our family too." The center's inauguration ceremony was moving, but for Lily, the most special moment was when her complete family, Arthur, Deborah and now John, cut the inaugural ribbon together. Dozens of children ran into the new building, exploring the colorful rooms, the spacious library, the cheerful cafeteria, and most importantly, the playground full of toys where they could simply be children. "How many children will live here?" a reporter asked Lily during an interview. 50 can sleep here, and another 100 can come during the day for activities, meals, and school support," she replied with precision. "And they'll all have good food, clean clothes, books to read, and people who care about them. And will you live here too?" "No, I have a family now. But I'll always come to play with the kids and help when they're scared." "Why do you want to help?" Lily thought carefully before answering. "Because when I lived on the street, I dreamed someone would come to take care of me. And they did. Now I want to be that person for other children." Later, when the official ceremony ended and most guests had left, Lily's family gathered in Deborah's office inside the center. John had brought an old box he had carried for years. "Lily, I have some things from your mother that I saved," he said, opening the box carefully. Inside were photos of Joanna as a child, some of her old toys, and most importantly, a diary she kept where she wrote about her little daughter. "Can I read it?" Lily asked. "Of course, granddaughter. It's yours by right." Deborah helped Lily read some excerpts from the diary. Joanna's words revealed the immense love she felt for her daughter, her dreams for her future, and especially her fear that Carol might hurt the girl. "Listen to this," Deborah said, reading a specific passage. "My little Lily has something special. She remembers everything she sees, understands people in a way even I can't. I'm sure one day she'll use that gift to help many people. I just hope I'm alive to see it." "Mama knew I was going to help people?" Lily asked, amazed. "She did," John said. "Joanna always said you were a special child, that you had an important mission in life." Arthur looked at Lily with renewed admiration. "And she was right. You saved not only yourself, but hundreds of other children." "But I didn't do it alone," Lily said. "You helped me, Miss Regina, Captain Jones, even Mark in the end. And most importantly, you gave me a family." It was then that Deborah made the final revelation, something she had discovered during the investigation, but had kept as a surprise. "Lily, there's one thing you still don't know about this whole story." "What is it?" "The money we recovered from the criminals won't just fund this center. It will create a permanent foundation to open similar centers in other cities." "How many centers?" "At least 10 in the next 5 years." "And do you know what the foundation will be called?" Lily shook her head. "The Joanna Santos Foundation. In honor of your mother." Lily's eyes filled with joyful tears. "So Mama's name will help other children forever." "Forever," Arthur confirmed. "And you'll be the foundation's ambassador. When you grow up, if you want, you can help manage everything." "I want to!" Lily exclaimed. "I want to make sure no child ever goes hungry or sleeps on the street again." That night, at the mansion, the expanded family had dinner together for the first time. John had accepted the invitation to live in a small house on the property, where he could be near his granddaughter but maintain his independence. "Grandpa, tell me the story of the magic birds," Lily asked during dessert. John smiled, happy to relive a tradition he thought lost forever. "Once upon a time, there was a little bird that lived in a cage. But she dreamed of flying free," Lily continued, perfectly remembering the story. "That's right. And one day, a kind fairy opened the cage and said, 'Now you can fly wherever you want. But remember, whenever you find another trapped bird, help it to free itself too.' And that's what the little bird did for the rest of her life," Lily finished. "She flew free and helped other birds fly free too. Exactly what you did, my granddaughter." After Lily went to sleep, the adults stayed on the porch, talking about the future. Arthur had decided to expand his cotton business to include organic products that would be sold to finance the children's centers. Deborah planned a specialization course in child protection to train more qualified professionals. And John had discovered he had a lot of love to give and wanted to help by tending the gardens of all the foundation's centers. "You know what impresses me most?" Deborah said, looking at the stars. "How a 4-year-old girl managed to unite so many good people around a cause." "She has that gift," Arthur said. "She makes people want to be better." "That's what Joanna always said," John added. "That Lily came into the world to spread light where there was darkness." In her room, Lily finished one last drawing before going to sleep. It was different from all the others. It showed an entire city full of colorful houses, flowering gardens, and hundreds of children playing happily. In the sky, birds of all colors flew free, and right in the center of the image, a small girl held a bottle of crystal clear water, offering it to other thirsty children. Beneath the drawing, in her still childlike but careful handwriting, she wrote, "When you help one, you help all. And when everyone helps each other, the world becomes beautiful." She put the drawing in the special folder where she kept her most precious memories and lay down, hugging the bottle that continued to be her talisman of hope. Through the window, she could see the lights of the city where she was born, grew up on the streets, suffered, but most importantly, where she had learned that even in the darkest moments, There is always someone willing to offer a sip of clean water to those who are thirsty. And so, the girl who once offered her only bottle of water to a stranger in distress slept peacefully, knowing that she had created a ripple of kindness that would spread for generations, transforming thirst into hope, hunger into abundance, and most importantly, transforming abandoned children into loved children. In the gardens around the mansion, the real birds sang a soft melody, as if they knew that a special girl lived there who had learned that everyone, humans and birds, deserves to fly free under the endless southern sky. And if you enjoyed this story, please show your support.